Vishal.
All right, this is big development coming in. Supreme Court's respite to the Jahangirpuri demolition drive continues for at least 2 weeks now. The Supreme Court issues a stay or says that the status quo to continue for the next 2 weeks. Let me cut across to Ashutosh, who's right there on ground in Jahangirpuri. Ashutosh, some respite to the locals there. Supreme Court is now ordered for the status quo to continue for the next 2 weeks. What's the reaction that you're getting in from ground? Have you heard any of those locals? What do you see around?
Well, Nabila, it's absolutely, it's totally status quo here. And as I rightly said previously, there's media access to this particular area where the violence broke out and also where largely the victims are. We are totally restricted. We are not allowed to cross this particular road. So this is a kind of barricade guarded by CRPF, and beyond this point, we are not allowed really to speak. What we are hearing that shortly there will be a peace committee meeting, and largely still I could see there are barely few people in these houses because most of them are daily wages earner. They have gone back to their work. It is just another routine day for Jahangirpuri. Remember, this is also upon the people, the marginalized class, mostly the Muslim community, the Dalit community, those who have been living here. So because they have to earn their bread and butter, they all have gone back to their work. Just routine, another day, despite all the violence broke out, despite the stress tension, if I could say. No, there is no tension prevailing here. It's totally peace and calm. This was the side where the bulldozer, the bulldozer drive took place. This was the place where, largely we see the burned vehicles. But despite all the illegal encroachment on this area particular, there was no bulldozer at all. But for now, it is only guarded by police, the paramilitary personals. And since the Supreme Court has ordered now the next hearing post 2 weeks, status quo for 2 weeks, clearly it is a relief here for the people of Jahangirpuri. And then since situation is already calm and peace prevailing, from tomorrow onwards it will be just new day and perhaps just another regular day for the people of Jahangirpuri.
Right, Ashutosh, a quick word on the crux of this entire argument right now that ensued in the Supreme Court, where the petitioners constantly claim that this was being targeted at one community. The Muslim community have been targeted. MCD was raising down those establishments that belong to the Muslim community, while the Supreme Court tried to intervene and reminded the petitioners that in Kargo in Madhya Pradesh, you had at least 88 homes of Hindus that were destroyed and 28 of Muslims. Similar scene even in Jahangirpuri. We saw at least 3-4 shops out of the 12. About 3-4 shops belong to Hindus. Why don't you clarify for us what exactly is the reality on ground? Was it only Muslims establishments that were targeted alone?
Where we have all these visuals live. Yesterday, when the bulldozer drive was taking place, all our reporters, all our colleagues were reporting from different pockets. Remember the Jha who had a local shop here that was demolished. The Sanjay Juice Corner, another Hindu family, his house, his shop also bulldozed up. But what it seems, largely, you only cannot see the action without the larger perspective. It was a decisive action. It seems that it was totally decided that what they have to and in which area particularly. Now, if this is a square, there are 4 roads connect, east, west, north, south. Only this road saw the demolition drive right behind me, which was also part of the violence because there were some vehicles burned. And if you see, most of the areas are encroached by shopkeepers. There are vehicles parked. There are concrete kept because there are local shopkeepers. Nothing was touched down. But yes, there were some shopkeepers, including from the Hindu families. They also came under the demolition. But what is most significant is they kept crying. They said, we have papers, we have legitimate papers. This is our legitimate property authorized by MCD. The license have been issued by the MCD. The construction have been approved by the DDA. But despite all their arguments, everything was ignored by the MCD officials, and mercilessly they just bulldozed down all these structures that came upon. And that's clearly why he approached to the Supreme Court, that despite the legitimate papers and documentation that over the years he owned this property, made it from hard-earned money, why it was raised down. But here, why the largely accusation coming on the MCD that mostly because in this particular line that belongs to the Muslim community that can be seen raised, whereas the other side, which largely dominated by the Hindi community, a bulldozer did not even cross the road. That perhaps could be one of the major reasons why this accusation is being labeled on the MCD. And remember, there is also MCD polls now, could be happen anytime. We have seen the unification, and it has to go under the polls. And that's exactly why the accusation is coming, that this could be a political decision, a political bulldozer to replicate the UP bulldozer model in the Delhi for the political benefit. And that's exactly you saw by the evening, all political parties, the opposition camp attacking the BJP, where Aam Aadmi Party, kept saying, bulldoze the BJP headquarters if you have to prevent nation from the, the communal hatred. Congress says, are all Bangladeshis or Rohingyas are illegal?
Quite
are they not
naturally
human
has
beings?
peaked
But the
over
BJP
this
kept
issue.
calling
But Ashutosh, as much as since you highlighted that MCD elections is coming soon enough, is this politically motivated? Those are questions that the opposition is asking, and of course even the petitioners also claiming the same. While that said, some of those points in the petition really raises a lot of questions about MCD, whether at all the MCD would touch a house or a shop that is illegally encroached in South Delhi. Why target the poor? How many areas across Delhi or across the country for that matter are poor people living in illegal establishments and in slum dwellings that are largely illegal, in shanties that are largely illegal? This area was straight right at targeted, with the MCD arriving a day after the BJP sent out a letter requesting the MCD to take action, raise down the houses of stone pelters because they are encroached land, etc. So give us an understanding. How often or how common is this anti-encroachment drive carried out by the MCD? Is this regular process that they do? We hear in the same area about 3 days ago, the MCD had anyway done a similar anti-encroachment drive. So what's new?
Let's understand this anti-encroachment drive. When there is a demolition of a pakka house, concrete house in a residential complex, calling it illegal. For example, if this is a colony, MCD believes that these lands are encroached upon the public road and there are illegal structure. Since because it's a pakka house, first they have to serve a notice, and petition of course can go and challenge. And we have seen several properties, and Sainik Farm is one of the example which has been in the court for many years. That's one example. Now, if these are the roads, there are kacha structure who open some shops for local milk selling, fruit selling, vegetables, ready patri, rack pickers, all these shops, then MCD do not require a permission. It is a regular drive. If you travel to Paharganj, if you go to Sadar Bazaar, if you go to Chavdi Bazaar, Chandni Chowk, Lajpat Nagar, Sarojini Nagar, all these markets
where you're saying that this is a regular drive that the MCD does, and this shouldn't be surprising to anyone. Anisha Mathur is also joining us for a little perspective on that. Anisha, we saw arguments unfolding in court where petitioners, of course, trying to highlight that the MCD is targeting a particular community, that this was unconstitutional, this encroachment drive, and of course blaming the MCD of having malicious intent behind this entire demolition drive that was carried out. Give us an understanding what was argued in court and what was the Supreme Court's response to that?
Well, Nabila, it's been a very sharp but short argument in the court today. While the petitioners have argued that there was a particular targeting of a community after the rioting that took place, they've also argued that not just in Delhi but in a lot of other areas. They gave the example of Madhya Pradesh, they gave the example of Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat. This kind of targeted demolitions are taking place. In fact, Advocate Kapil Sibal argued that while encroachments must be removed for the ministers and for the political leadership to say that encroachments are being done by a particular community and that the removal of those encroachments is a punishment to that community is what the problem in this situation really is. On the other side, of course, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta rubbishing these claims. Solicitor General has argued that there was no community targeting, that the MCD has been carrying out demolition drives in Jahangirpuri for a long time now, since January as a matter of fact. The Solicitor General also arguing that it was on the Delhi High Court's orders on a petition regarding encroachments on the road that this demolition drive was carried out. However, the Supreme Court asked a very pointed question, that if you are saying that you're only removing the redis and chairs and boxes from the footpaths, then why is it that you needed to take bulldozers? What did you actually issue notice to the permanent structures that you have demolished? For that, the Solicitor General has said that he will be submitting documents to back up his arguments. The Solicitor General has also said that the allegation by the Jamiat that there is target targeting of a particular community after disturbances in other states as well. That is also being dismissed by the Solicitor General, who is saying that if giving an example of Khargone in MP, he has argued that in Khargone the similar kind of demolition drive took place. 88 of the persons affected were Hindus, while 28 of the persons affected were Muslims. So the Jamiat's argument that there is a targeting of particular communities is incorrect, according to the Solicitor General. At the moment, the Supreme Court of India has asked the government, as the MCD, the state governments, the centre, the Delhi police, all of them have to file a detailed response to the petitions that have been filed. Notices have been issued on all the petitions. Remember, not just the Jamiat petition, but also Brinda Karat's petition, which alleged that despite the mayor having been informed, the demolition did not stop. What is also important is that the Supreme Court bench has clearly said that we will take this issue seriously of whether the demolition continued even after information had been given to the mayor. But at this stage, at the first stage, tell us what was the process followed, whether notices were issued or not. And also for the petitioners, the court has asked, since one of the petitioners before the court is somebody who's claiming to be a resident of the area whose property was demolished, the court has also said, you file an affidavit, tell us whether any notices were issued to you or not, what documentation do you have to back up your claim. So at the moment, the Supreme Court has only extended the status quo orders, no demolition in Jahangirpuri for the next 2 weeks till the matter comes up again. But all parties have to put their stand on affidavit. The government has to clarify what process was followed. The petitioners have to clarify what violation of their rights has taken place. And the court has very clearly said that we will take this issue seriously, whether the demolition continued even after the mayor had been informed. The lawyer for the Jamiat Ulema-Hind has also been directed to file an affidavit showing the timeline of exactly when he had sent the WhatsApp message and the email to the NDMC mayor and NDMC officials. The advocate M.R. Shamshad, who was present in the court, in fact, claimed that he had already prepared the affidavit. He had sought permission to file that affidavit. The court has said, we will take this on record. You file all the possible documents. So clearly the court is saying that we want to see everything. We want an explanation for everything, whether everything was done by the book or not, and whether the Supreme Court's orders passed yesterday at 11 o'clock were violated or not. So ultimately, after 2 weeks, when everybody has been given time to explain themselves, that is when the important hearing will happen. Back to you.
You know, so the next hearing, we understand, is in 2 weeks' time. In the meanwhile, status quo to be maintained. Is that right, Anisha?
Well, yes, Nabila. As I said, status quo orders have been continued. The court has very clearly said nothing will happen in Jahangirpuri for the next 2 weeks. What is also important to note is that Mr. Sibal had tried to argue that similar orders should also be passed in the other petition, which is for demolitions going on in UP, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, etc. But the court has not yet passed those orders. The court, in fact, commented that when we are seized of this issue, when we've passed orders in this case, do you really think that demolitions of this kind will continue? But this is something that
रही थी जब भी नहीं हमारे को आने दिया।
आगे का जो पूरा हिस्सा है वो सड़क का
नहीं
10 फीट 15 फीट सबने घेरी होती है।
नहीं कोई 10-15 फीट नहीं है। मेरा छज्जा 1.5 फुट निकला हुआ है। आज उसे और जो है कोर्ट की तरफ से 2.5 फीट जो है अलाउड है, और उसके बावजूद भी 1.5 फुट मेरा तोड़ दिया गया है। 2.5 फुट अलाउड होता है कोर्ट की तरफ से। हर मकान का देख लीजिए आप, 3 फुट 4 फुट छज्जा निकला हुआ है, तो मेरा 1.5 फुट क्यों तोड़ दिया गया? भाई जे सलम की मेरी दुकान है, जे सलम के ये मकान है, तो मेरे साथ ऐसा अन्याय क्यों? ठीक है जी, चलिए
All right, there you have it. Locals are already speaking out. They're saying this is unfair treatment, many of whom believe that they are well within their right to build along that area, and they call this legal. MCD, of course, responding, saying that this is, of course, illegal land and they have all the right to demolish it. India Today continues our relentless coverage right here. Do stay tuned. Slipping into a short break.